Hey, welcome to another episode of Spritz of Wisdom. Let's begin like we do every single week with my sip of the week. These are my highs and lows of the previous 7 days living here in South Italy. Starting with the highs, I have had a lovely long weekend off, and it was also partly the reason why there wasn't an episode last week, because I was so busy trying to get myself organized so that I could actually switch off for the long weekend that we had here in Italy. Because Friday was the 1st of May, and that is a red day here in Italy, or a public holiday as it's otherwise known. And it's the day of the workers. And I was like, I don't want to be working on the 1st of May. Like, I want to switch off. I want to enjoy this time off. And it was so lovely to be able to do so, because I think that this is definitely the way that I'm wired as a person. But there is this kind of sense that you've always got to be hustling, you've always got to be working towards, your goals, what it is that you want to achieve. But the fact is, you do also need to switch off, because that's often when creativity is restored, and that's often when you start to reflect on things differently, because you're not in the mix of doing work. You are actually taking some time out, and you can recalibrate and you can assess things better. So that was really, really nice. I've enjoyed that. The weather has been pretty good, actually. Today's a bit cloudy, but it's been really, really nice for the holiday period. So I'm super, super happy about that. I'm also happy because I realized the other day, it's coming up to 6 months since I launched my Aperitivo Lounge community, and I'm actually recording a video which will be coming out this Sunday, where I reflect on the lessons that building that community has actually taught me, and that you can apply to your life if you're living here or you're about to make the move here. Because I think starting an online community teaches you so many things, and they are so transferable to other situations in your life. So I'm really excited to talk about that more in Sunday's video. But also, I'm really grateful because I had a post on Instagram go viral about a week ago now, or just over a week ago. And I have to be honest with you, I've not really been big on Instagram in recent months. I mean, prior to the beginning part of this year, I was really posting very ad hoc, didn't have a strategy, didn't really know like what I was using that platform for. My main focus was really YouTube. However, I've been thinking about like how I can utilize Instagram in a way that raises awareness of my brand and brings people ultimately over to YouTube. And so I started to get a bit more strategic with it, especially in Q2 of this year. So really from kind of late March onwards. And wow, I had a post go viral. And I tell you what it taught me, actually, because it did teach me something. It taught me that virality isn't the answer. And so many people chase after this. They want a post to go viral. They want eyeballs on their brand. They want people to know about them. They want all of the things that they think come on the back of virality. This post, without any kind of paid sponsorship or anything like this, reached, I think at the time of filming, it's nearly 23,000 people. And I had just over 300 follows on the back of that one single post. And it was quite something for me, because the comments, there were like hundreds of comments on that post, because the post was about something really, really important. And it was about loneliness here in Italy. And this was a conversation point that we'd had within our community space, the Aperitivo Lounge. And it was something that I felt really passionate about. And so I decided to create this carousel, just kind of talking about this point and kind of trying to shatter the taboo that there is around this. And it's just been so fascinating to hear people's experiences, and also in a way to see how people respond to being told that life here can be one way, because it has inspired today's episode. As always, my life is super synchronistic in this way, but it's also shown me that it's about the quality of the people that follow you. Virality means that you have people reading your content who don't know anything about you, and they make a judgment about you based on that single post that they read. And sometimes the judgment is wildly wrong. It's inaccurate. They haven't understood your brand at all. Like, I literally had somebody telling me it's because of me I'm selling the dream of Italy, when my tagline is no fantasy, just life in Italy. So it's that kind of other side to virality. And it also kind of messes with your mind a little bit, because you're like constantly chasing numbers for a bit after that. So having that little reset at the weekend was very good for me, because I've never been that person to want to chase the numbers. Of course, I want my brand to grow. I want to reach lots of people, but it's not something that I want to become obsessed over. I'm very much kind of focused on building quality community and not just empty numbers. So I feel like that was a really, really interesting lesson. What else from the past 7 days? I've eaten amazing food in this past week. Like literally, if I needed a reminder as to why I love living here so much, partly it is also for the food, because I've eaten lasagna, amazing. I've eaten incredible cheeses, mozzarella, burrata, fantastic. I went to an agriturismo on the 1st of May and we had like really nice fresh food there as well. So it's just been a period of eating and enjoying life. Like I, of course, am very conscious that I don't want to, overeat and consume too much. But I look at what I am eating and I'm like, none of it is kind of processed junk. None of it is on its own, in its entity, unhealthy for me physically. Like, especially in moderation. So I think I'm just enjoying the food here more and I'm not being so hung up on like putting on weight or, the kind of other sides of eating that people often get stuck on. So that's been really, really liberating, I have to be honest. Now, what about lows of the past week? I guess in a way, this post going viral was a bit of a double-edged sword because it was a huge high, because it was amazing to finally have people talking about this. I'm really passionate about this and to have people understanding what I do. But it was also a bit of a low because it brought about a lot of judgment and people wanting to prove that they are right and that others are wrong. And I feel like this is the perfect segue, as always, into today's full pour episode, because in my opinion, no one is ever right about Italy. Now, I feel like this is a really, really nuanced conversation because people nowadays are so used to reading content or being served content through the different algorithms that there are online that is directly suited to their interests, their needs, or is in agreement with their kind of values and thought processes. And so when people come across content that is in opposition to what they believe or their values or their belief systems, whatever it may be, there is that moment where people want to kind of resist that and be like, no, you're wrong. This never happened. It's not like this here. And I think it's in a way quite sad because we have to remember that two things can be true at the same time. And I kind of addressed some of these things in another Instagram post because I was like, it's so important that we talk about this. Like I've always said it, that no two people's experiences here in Italy will ever be the same. There are so many nuanced factors to this. It does depend on where you live in Italy because, as I've said it and as many other people say it, Italy is not a unified, uniform experience. You're going to have a very different life if you live in Milan compared to if you live in Sicily, for example. It's just the way that it is here. There are different cultures and traditions, even within the regions, different attitudes, and people are different in different parts of Italy. It's not a stereotype. It is actually reality. And so we have to remember that if you're going to look at that aspect alone, of course, your experience is not going to be the same as another person's necessarily living here in Italy. Then you've got age as well. Age is a factor that means that you're going to have different experiences depending on what stage in your life that you move here to Italy. If you move here retired, you're going to have more free time for sure, but it might also mean it's harder for you to break into social circles because you're not necessarily going to have those opportunities presented to you on a plate. You are going to have to go out and find those people that you can make connections with. If you move here younger, you might find it easier because you've got lots of opportunities, possibilities, people that you can meet. You might like to go out a lot in the evening. So age is a huge factor as to the experiences you're going to have here for sure. Then, of course, you've got like your own experiences, what you move here having experienced in your own life, because your perception of life here is definitely going to be impacted by what you've experienced before. And so I think, that is another aspect, your own personal mindset, perception, the way that you approach life here. These are all things that are very nuanced, very personal, and mean that no two people's experiences are ever going to be the same here. And I feel like this is what we forget. There was so much judgment being thrown around on this post, like people saying it's not true. I've made friends here. It's because you don't know the language. Listen, I repeat it here, like not knowing Italian is of course going to hinder your experience here. But there were plenty of people that were commenting on that post who know Italian and was still experiencing loneliness because guess what? Knowing the language isn't this magic unlock to a perfect life here. It helps. It makes life, existable, shall we say, in Italy. But it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be friends with everybody that you speak to just because you share the same language. It's the same in your own country. And I feel like we forget all of these things. And so I guess what I want to say to you is that it's important that people can feel that they can talk about their experiences here and that those experiences can be recognized as being valid, even if they are not the experiences that you yourself personally have had. And I feel like we need to hold the space for that. I mean, that's what I do on my Instagram, on my YouTube channel, in my Aperitivo Lounge community. I hold the space for people to talk about what could be very, very different experiences here in Italy, because it's important that we do. This whole you're wrong, it's like this, it's not like that, you don't know what you're talking about, whatever, doesn't help that person who in that moment might be struggling with that very thing that you're talking about. It kind of shames them into silence, which never addresses the root cause of a problem. I think the reason people sometimes don't talk up about difficulties here in Italy is for this. They don't want to be shamed. They don't want to be made to feel like it's because of them. Now, don't get me wrong, there is personal responsibility that you have to take when you live in this country. You do have to make an effort and change and adapt and do all of those things in order to live a happy life here. But it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong per se with you. It's just that you have to adapt your way of living as you would in any country. And so I feel like people throwing this judgment around really doesn't help matters when people here are genuinely having difficulties. Because as I've always said it, this country is so heavily romanticized by the media. Because people say to me, like, who romanticizes this country? Type in Italy to Google and look for yourself and tell me what page you arrive at before you see an ugly image of this country or a negative article, because I guarantee you it's going to be quite a few pages in. And it's the reality. This country is glamorized. People love it. People come here on holiday and they fall in love with it. But of course, we all know a holiday here is not the same as living here. And so I think it's just brought up some really, really important things. But I guess for my chin chin this week, what I really want to touch on is the fact that if you are reading content that doesn't match your experience here in Italy or your experience of having moved to Italy, please know it doesn't invalidate your experience. It doesn't mean that what you're living isn't real in that moment. It just means that people experience things in different ways. And that can actually be a beautiful thing because we can learn from others. We're not all clones of each other having the same kind of life. But it also doesn't mean that you should start judging other people because they have had experiences that are very different. When I read comments from people telling me that they've had a great experience here, I'm super happy for them. Like, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I couldn't be happier, because I know that it's not the same for everyone. And so is what I want to kind of reassure you of today, because it's really, really easy sometimes to listen to what people say on the internet who don't know anything about you, by the way, don't know your life, don't know anything about your character. They're just commenting on the back of what they've seen other people talk about. And it's easy to let that influence you. But I want to say, don't. Understand that these things can happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to happen to you. But just having an awareness that this is a possibility here will definitely help you to navigate life differently and to accept things for the way that they can be here sometimes in Italy. I will see you in the next episode.